Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome everyone to another CPC strategy hosted webinar. Today we have Greg Mercer from Jungle Scout here with us today on day 2 of our Q4 Amazon Growth Virtual Summit for Brands. So welcome if this is your first time with us, and we hope to see more of you at future events. And if this is not your first time, welcome back, and we are happy to have you here again. So Q4 is right around the corner. So let's talk about how to use inventory management to grow your sales. So before we begin, I do want to go over our summit. I know yesterday we did have 2 presentations. We had CPC Strategy presenting on Amazon trends and actionable tips. Later in the day, we had Solid Commerce on their presentation with inventory management. So rest assured that if you missed it, these slides and recordings will be sent out to you all. Today we have, as I mentioned earlier, Jungle Scout, who will be speaking towards project strategies. We have Greg over here. And then 15 minutes after this presentation, we will have Salsify, who will be speaking towards how to really enhance your product page and win those holiday sales. So before I do pass it on over to Greg to introduce himself, I will go over some logistics. As I mentioned before, this session recording and slides will be sent out to you all as soon as we have them all lined up and ready to go for you. Another thing to mention is that we do have a questions tab. So I'm Alicia. I'm your CPC Strategies webinar coordinator, so I'll be moderating all the presentation today, as well as handling all your questions on the back end. So on your user interface of GoToWebinar, you will see a questions tab. That's where you submit your questions for Greg today, and I'll be queuing those up so we can get to them at the Q&A at the end of this presentation. Lastly, we do have some resources available for download. It's another tab on that GoToWebinar panel, so feel free to download those. And now we ask that you join in on a poll question. Kind of just to hear what you guys are today in respect to strategies and your keywords. So I think I'm going to launch it now. Oh man, let's launch up. You know what? I launched it. Doesn't let me launch it again. I'm sorry, Greg. I closed it. It's really, maybe everyone can chime in the questions tab and learn how to use that tab. Just a curiosity, and they can flow in, I guess, and I can hit you, Greg, with the answers that we get. So question is, how big of a role do keywords play in your strategy? Is it a high priority? Keywords and bidding is, top of the list for you. It's not really that much of a priority, maybe medium priority when it comes to keywords in your campaign building, or is it super low priority? You don't, look into keywords that much and you set it up automated. So if you can answer that question in the question tab, the priority that keywords play in your strategy, that'd be great, because I just opened and closed that poll and now we can't use it again. So I apologize, Greg. But please answer, everyone. Send me your shout outs in the questions tab, and now I will pass it on over to Greg, who will introduce Jungle Scout and himself.
Thank you for that, Annalicia. Thank you for having me on and putting together this summit. You got a nice group of speakers. I'm sure it's very educational for all of the audience right now. So hey guys, I'm Greg Mercer. I'm the founder and CEO of Jungle Scout. Jungle Scout is a product research tool for Amazon sellers. So it helps Amazon sellers understand how well products are selling on Amazon and what good opportunities they have. We also have a number of other tools in the Jungle Scout suite, from split testing to profit analytics to inventory management. You can kind of find more about those at junglescout.com if you're interested. But today, I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit more about how to get ready for Q4. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about a few different things. And I feel like these are the biggest questions I get when it comes to planning for Q4. So I am an Amazon seller myself. I started selling in 2012. So I guess this is my 6th Q4 on Amazon. And, I've been in this space a good amount of time now, at least in Amazon years. And the questions I always get are like, what do I need to do to get ready for Q4? Everyone always talks about the most exciting time of the year for Amazon sellers, and people always want to know, like, how can I take advantage of these additional sales? How can I get ready and optimize my listing for it? And the second most popular question I get is, how much inventory do I need to have? What kind of sales increases can I expect during this this period online that the sales are obviously a little bit higher? So those are like the 2 main questions that I want to answer for you guys throughout today's presentation.
Hey,
So
Greg, before we do jump in, I just
yeah, go
wanted to let you
ahead.
know about I got a lot of replies. Thank you all for helping me with that. Sorry about that. Again, about 95% of our attendees say that keywords is a high priority for them, and then another 5 say that it's a moderate priority, and people are still trying to figure it out. And so if you have any tips, they're all ears.
Great. Yeah, I'll be giving lots of tips there. I'll be talking about how you can optimize it and how you can use certain tools to help you find the highest impact keywords for you in your particular business. So I imagine a lot of you guys are pretty familiar with Jungle Stakeout, considering we have a few 100,000 customers. A number of people watching this are customers now. But like I spoke about earlier, it is a tool to help you find opportunities on Amazon. It also helps you understand how well products sell on Amazon. We built a proprietary algorithm that is the leader in the space of determining unit sales on Amazon. We've also recently added something that's a keyword research tool, and all the feedback that we're getting is that it's the best in the business. I'm going to kind of demo that for you guys, show you how it can be beneficial for you guys, and why it yeah, just in general, why it's helpful. And when it comes to optimizing listings and really getting your products and your Amazon business ready for Q4 and trying to maximize the amount of sales that you get during this period, uh, we have another tool called Splitly that I'll talk a little bit about, but I don't want this to just be like a sales pitch for our tools. So I'm also throughout this presentation going to be talking about what types of things you can do to improve your listings, get them converting better, even if you're not using any of our tools. So I'll talk a little bit more about that throughout the presentation. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the things that I'm going to be covering throughout this. I think the first thing I really want to dive into is how you can determine demand for Q4. And this helps a lot with mostly your inventory planning, but also, like your cash flow forecasting. And everyone just wants to know, like, what can I expect? If you've been selling on Amazon for a few years, this isn't as much of like a shock, or you'll probably have a better understanding of it. Because you can look at historical sales. But what I found is, probably a lot of people watching this webinar right now, this is like their first time in Q4, or they have some new products that this is the first Q4 for that individual product. So if you don't have the historical information, I'm going to show you a couple ways that you can figure out what to expect as far as sales go this Q4. We'll also be talking about a little bit about your competitors and how to kind of figure out what's working well for them. We're going to be talking a lot about keyword optimization strategies. That's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about because it can have a huge impact on your sales and on your listing. And then we'll talk a little bit about optimizing your listing. And if you choose to do some split testing, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So if you look on the internet, like how well do products sell during Q4? What can I expect for sales during Q4? You get all types of answers. If you went like on the Seller Central forums, some people are like, man, I had like 10x my sales in Q4. Other people are like, man, I didn't see any increase at all. And the reason for this is because it is very product and opportunity dependent. Obviously, if you're selling something like children's toys, you can expect a lot more sales during this particular time period as people are doing their holiday shopping. If you're selling other things like medical care products or something else, you're probably not going to see any increase of sales, at least for certain ones, or maybe the increase of sales is going to be very minimal, all right? So everyone always kind of wants to find out, like, okay, what about my particular products and the ones that I'm selling? How do I figure out? And I'm going to show you two different tools that I use in order to figure this out. So the first tool that I'm showing you, and it's on my screen now, is called Google Trends. Some of you may be familiar with Google Trends, but I like it a lot because it's totally free. Just Google Trends and this will pop up. I think you can also, just go to trends.google.com. But what Google Trends is it's how often these terms are searched either on the web, on the news, or you can even do YouTube search now. All right. So I went ahead and put in a search term here. The particular search term I used was kids toy, just because I wanted something with pretty dramatic sales differences. And as to be expected, I'm seeing starting in the beginning of November, sales really increase. They're the highest up until about Christmas, and then bam, right as January hits, they're very low again. All right. A lot of people ask, what do these numbers mean? So you can see when I'm hovering over this right now, I see the number 32. And when I hover over this right here, I see the number 97. The best way to think about these numbers is think about them in a relative term. So the highest peak on this whole graph is going to have the number 100. Okay, so what you can do is if the number right now, is 33, the way you can think about that is there's 33% of demand, or there's 33% of search volume for that search term on Google during this time period compared to the peak time period. All right. And if you change it to, let's just say like past 12 months, you'll kind of see the same thing, right? So the highest period was right around Thanksgiving time. All right, that's the 100. And then in the middle of March, it's 36. So about 36% of search volume during that period is what there was during the peak period. Now, this is obviously data from Google, so it's not 100% or it doesn't, it doesn't compare exactly to what searches would be on Amazon. The search behavior of users on Amazon is different than Google, but if you're looking for just a completely free solution, in my opinion, this is the best free way to kind of gather some data like that. If you're just trying to get a general idea of like what you can expect in increased volume, right? So right here it would be about 3 times as much during that Thanksgiving-ish period as it would be like, let's say, in the middle of spring. Now, if you guys have the Jungle Scout extension, some of you probably do, then there's a way to determine it based off of Amazon data instead of Google data. So what you do is, or what I just did is I clicked on the monthly sales number underneath the monthly sales column, okay? And when you click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to query the Jungle Scout database and pull back all of the sales information for as long as we have it. All right. So for some products that are not on, or that haven't been on Amazon very long, I think I timed this page out. Some products that haven't been on Amazon very long, it's going to, it's only going to be a few months worth of sales history. Other products that have been around for a long time, it's going to be a lot more, right? So let me just click on that monthly sales column one more time. And what you can use this for is to get the actual sales numbers and how they depend, or how they've been on, particularly on Amazon, not on Google, for historical months. All right. So what I'm looking at here is like a stair-step graph, and each month shows you how many units have been sold that month, and it's pretty accurate. You can think of it as about like plus or minus like around 20%. All right, so it gives you a good indicator. And this particular, again, I just did a toy because I wanted an example that showed you, definitely like increased sales during Q4. And as you can see from November of last year, so November 2017, this product sold 1,470 units. In December, it sold 3,600 units, so a big increase. And then come January, it was down to 870 units again. All right. So for this particular product, it's a toy, and it sold about 4 times as much in December, and about, let's just say, twice as much in November as what it did in January. So this is a great way to gauge actual sales on Amazon and what to expect. It looks like the previous year wasn't quite as much. The previous year, actually November was a little bit higher than December, but the best thing to do is to look at a few different competitors, because some of these products may have ran out of stock, or some might have just been ranking better that particular season than others. So normally what I do is I go through and I click on a few different one of my competitors, and then kind of as a whole, I can determine kind of what to expect as far as sales increases. And if you're thinking about, or if you're now that we're almost at the end of September, now is really the time that you need to be placing any final reorders, especially I guess if you're getting your goods from overseas with the ocean shipment. It's getting kind of late now, but in the next week or so, I think you could still get goods in by at least some of the Q4 rush. So if you guys haven't already done kind of your inventory planning, I would say don't put it off any later, because the timing for it is already getting pretty tight. All right. So now that and I think say that's like definitely the number one question that I get about Q4. Everyone always wants to know like how many sales are going to be. The other questions that I get is just like how can I really get my listing ready for it? And that's how I kind of want to spend the rest of today's presentation, talking a little bit about what I think are the highest priority things that you can do to get your listing ready for Q4. So we talked about keywords a little bit earlier, and keywords are important for a number of reasons. The most important reason, in my opinion, is that this is how like over 90% of customers find your products on Amazon. So just the way that Amazon's structured and the way that it's built, it's really built as a search engine for keywords. So people are going to Amazon, and not that many people are finding products through like the bestsellers page or the hot and new page or like whatever else, right? People go to Amazon, they type in what they're looking for in the search bar, and this is how they find your product. And I think most maybe like newer Amazon sellers, or if they're not as familiar with the platform, they don't realize that there's tons of different keywords that people are searching for in order to find your product. So for example, one of the products that I sell are bamboo marshmallow sticks, and that's what I call them, but I can kind of show you an example of this in a little while, that they're actually referred to in a lot of different terms, and they might there might even be other keywords or other terms that are more popular than what I'm actually calling them. All right, so I'd say that's the most important reason. The second thing that's very important and is good to realize is if you're using your Amazon sponsored products platform, it's a very simple platform, right? It's not like Facebook ads or even Google ads or anything else. It's very simple, and it's pretty much just you're bidding for keywords. So again, it's very important to understand what keywords are relevant for your particular product and which ones you should be bidding on. So the biggest question everyone has then is like, okay, this is great, but it's pretty hard to do keyword research without using some tools. And Jungle Scout just recently released a tool called Keyword Scout, and I kind of wanted to walk you through it a little bit. So if there's Jungle Scout users watching this, you can take advantage of this if you're already in the Jungle Scout web app. But I want to show you a few things that you guys should be thinking about or looking for when you're researching like what types of keyword tools you want to use, or which ones you kind of want help, or just which ones you want to be using. All right. So the thing that's most important to me, or there's really two things about keyword research tools that are most important to me. One is the accuracy of the data. So with Keyword Scout, we're actually getting this data directly from Amazon. So other keyword tools try to derive data based off like Bing or Google or whatever else, and that's not really the best way to do it. We already spoke a little bit earlier in this webinar that the search behaviors of customers are going to be different depending on which one of these platforms they're on. So I'd say that's very important. But the second most important thing is the reason we ended up building our own tools, because we were frustrated that when we were searching for terms on other, like I said earlier, I sell marshmallow sticks, so I just did a search for marshmallow sticks. I was frustrated that like when I was searching for marshmallow sticks, I was seeing results like 36-inch marshmallow sticks, bamboo marshmallow sticks, and like it wasn't really giving me terms besides marshmallow sticks. So one of the things you guys need to be thinking about, and like when you're doing your keyword research, I would encourage you to use a tool that gives keyword ideas that are similar to your seed term, but don't necessarily include the seed term. All right, and let me show you what I'm talking about there. So I searched for marshmallow sticks, and the way we compose this data is we looked on Amazon to see what keywords customers search and then end up buying marshmallow sticks. All right, so for example, people search for wooden skewers and then buy marshmallow sticks. People search for fire pit accessories and then buy marshmallow sticks. With, back in the day before Keyword Scout, when I was doing my keyword research, I was frustrated because like all of it, they would just be like marshmallow sticks with a word before, in the middle, or after it. And what I've found through this is like, something like s'mores maker is probably like the second best keyword for me. Like marshmallow roasting sticks has the highest exact match search volume leads, but then after that, like s'mores maker. So this is you definitely want to use a keyword tool that's giving you these different words that don't necessarily include the search term. Just as I'm looking at this real quick, you guys probably already understand the difference between exact match or broad match, but just to give you an idea, broad match keywords include broad match keywords can have an additional term before, in the middle, or after that keyword, whereas exact match is just that keyword straight up. There's some other information here, just like the headline search ad bid, the exact match PPC bid, and the broad match PPC bid. And again, this, when you're doing your planning for Q4 and you're trying to decide which keywords you want to bid on, either for headline search ads or for sponsored product ads, this is where you can find this information to help you plan on what types of keywords would be best for you, okay? So there's two different things, like I mentioned earlier, that you need to be thinking about when you're doing your keyword research. One, you want to make sure that all of the relevant keywords for your product that have at least a decent amount of searches are included in your listing. And the most important place to put your keywords are in your title. So for me, the keywords that I would want to include in my title would be marshmallow roasting sticks. I would want to include s'mores, maker, bamboo sticks. You don't have to repeat keywords. They only have to be in there once, but I would also want to include campfire. I would want to include marshmallow, wooden, roasting. So since these get the highest number of searches, those are the ones I want in my title. And then the rest of the keywords that still get searches but aren't important after I've filled up my title, those are the ones I want to put in my bullet points and my description. So this is all the types of things you need to be thinking about with that. So I said the one important thing again is when you're creating your listing, and the second thing is when you're doing keyword research, to be thinking about what keywords you want to target when you're doing your pay-per-click. And Alicia, any questions before I move on that are directly related to keyword research that I can answer real quick?
For you. Okay, great. So I have a few when it comes to keywords specifically. So one is coming from Kimberly. It's when she runs the Amazon keyword and search term reports, the product ASINs always come back. So she's wondering if this is because most people click from seeing the product in the suggested items bar, or why this keeps happening. I don't know if you're familiar with.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you run that report, the way that the user landed on your listing is through this section right here, sponsored products related to this item. So if I were to click on one of these, this is a sponsored products section. If I were to click on these in your search term report, when you download it, it would have the ASIN of this particular listing. So wherever it is, it would have this ASIN right here in your search term report, because the user went to this page and then ended up landing on your listing.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Kimberly. Hopefully we answered your question there. So we got a couple from Jennifer and Kyle, and maybe some others are chiming in now with the same question. So can you add keywords to another brand's ASIN and kind of piggyback on them to make you more visible in the search if you're selling the same product, for example?
Did you say the other product's brand name, or?
Another brand's ASIN, so another brand's product.
This is a good question. I don't think it's really going to help improve visibility, because, you know, like us as Amazon sellers, we understand kind of like what ASINs are. We commonly speak about them. We sometimes search for ours, but I would say it's going to be very, very rare that a customer would ever search for an ASIN. You know what I mean? They just, like, if I wanted this, I would search for like Mickey Mouse chair. I wouldn't like take this product's ASIN, search for it. So I don't really think that's that effective of kind of like a keyword optimization strategy.
Got it. And would you, there are a lot of keyword questions, so if you want, you stop me when you have to go back into content.
Yeah, let's do like one or two more.
Okay, great. And then so we have one here. If you would recommend using broad search versus, ooh, disappeared. Exact match over broad match by Valerie. She's wondering if you would pick one or the other, or a hybrid approach, maybe using both.
Yeah, so I think the question they're probably referring to here is when you're creating your sponsored products campaigns, do I recommend using broad match and exact match? And my answer is both. So there's a ton of different ways to create and structure your PPC campaigns on Amazon. The way that I personally do it, and the way that I personally recommend it, is to take all the keywords and I actually bid on them for the same keyword I bid on for exact match, phrase match, and broad match. All right. And what you'll find is different keywords do better with different match types. So for example, s'mores would probably do pretty well on broad match. Okay. So as a reminder, with broad match, I could search for s'mores stick or kit for s'mores. I can put words before or after it, and that still counts as like a broad match search. Okay. So some people are searching for just s'mores, about 4,000 per month. But about like 46 or 47,000 times per month is the word s'mores used in a search term with words before or after it. Okay. So what I do is like I said, I use all these keywords. I do an exact match campaign, a phrase match campaign, and a broad match campaign. And then over time, I just optimize it. And usually what happens is in my broad match campaigns, I have more like generalized terms that still seem to be working well. Like s'mores, I think is actually an example for my bamboo marshmallow sticks that does do well. And then other terms, I might only want to do exact match for, and I really just kind of let the analytics kind of like show me which ones I want to do there.
Okay, got it. I'll let you keep going if you want.
Cool. All right. So we're going to talk about one last topic before we wrap it up, and this is optimizing our listing. So, we already spoke a little bit about using keywords to help optimize your listing, and that's going to help you show up better in the search results. That's going to help you get more sales as a result. But we also, once the users find our listing and get to our listing, we really want to convert them into paying customers, right? That's the most important thing after all to us, is actually make that sale. So I have a few tips for you guys that I think is kind of like low-hanging fruit that I don't see enough people doing on Amazon. So these are a few of, I think, like the top optimization tips for Amazon sellers. And the way that I came up with these is by help, like we have thousands of customers on our tool called Splitly, which is an A/B testing tool. And as a result, we've witnessed over 100,000 different A/B tests and like working with customers to kind of like optimize them. And these are the things that we've seen that like have the highest impact, right? So we gathered this data, like I gathered these tips strictly from the data that we've personally collected. So the two highest impact things that you can do to improve your listing is the main image and the price. Changing those is what has the highest impact, and as a result, like the biggest or like the best room for improvement. When you're thinking about your main image, one thing that I learned is it's very hard to know which one's going to perform better without split testing it, but I wanted to give you guys like some actionable tips here. So I think one takeaway that I do have is pattern disrupt on the main image tends to work very well. And I just pulled off an example off of Amazon of pattern disrupt. So if you search for like Jenga or like wooden falling blocks or whatever else, you'll see like on the page, like everyone has pretty much the same thing. It's like one of those like Jenga towers, right? It's just like the blocks like nicely stacked up, and like the whole first page, it all looks like the exact same except for this one right here. And when you're looking at those, it's like, how do I know which one like I want? These all pretty much look the same. How do I know which one to click on? The price and the reviews are going to influence people, but you can draw a lot more attention, a lot more people's eyes to your product by using pattern disrupt like this as an example, okay? So of course, most of you guys probably aren't selling, Jenga towers or wooden tumbling blocks or whatever these are called, but you can still think about this. Some other creative ones that I've seen is like one person was selling chia seeds, and instead of just showing the pack, it was like the chia seeds were like spilling out of the pack, and like it spelt the word chia, like right there on that main image. So that was a really good example. So just think about like what other kind of creative angles or creative ways can you make your main image to help with a little bit of a pattern disrupt and get more eyes on your particular listing. Something else that I think is kind of like easy to do is I think there's an important mindset shift for all of us as Amazon sellers, depending on which statistic or like number you look at. I think some places it's been published like 70%, other words 80% of users find your product first on a mobile device. That's either their smartphone or their tablet. And when I talk about, I think there needs to be a mindset shift, is I guarantee like 90% of Amazon sellers are creating and looking at their listings in front of the computer. And I am too. I'm guilty of this. I sit in front of a computer all day long at work. And this is how I'm always looking at my Amazon listings, just because it's a little bit easier than like going on the Amazon app. But what you'll find when you do that is the layout of the listing is different, right? It won't show like all like 9 images. It will only show like the first 7. You'll find that your bullet points are truncated and your description is like way down at the bottom, even far below like the reviews and the video shorts and like a number of different areas. So it's always good to be looking at your listing on mobile and see what it looks like on mobile. Like, can you read all the text? Is like the bullet, or the things that you want to call out in your bullet points, are they at the top so they're not being truncated yet? These are all important things to understand. And if I were to summarize the rest of my optimization tips in just 3 bullet points, I think you need to be thinking about is, do the customers fully understand what they're buying? I think like whenever I see these split tests that have a huge impact, it's always because it's more clear now what the customer is buying. And I have some examples of this in the next slide, so just stay tuned. You also want the customer to understand why your product is better than the rest of your competitors. And again, I have some examples of this on the next slide. And the other thing that I just say is like an optimization tip is, what I've found is changing the text usually doesn't have much of an impact on your conversions or on your sales. So as a result of that, I have to just believe that most Amazon customers aren't really reading the text. They're just looking at the pictures and like the reviews, the price, and hitting that buy button. I know that's how I behave on Amazon as well. So here's some examples of some optimization tips that I'm talking about here. First of all, the first thing I said is, do the customers understand what they're buying, right? And the example on the left-hand slide here of the sleeping bag, I think does a good job of making sure that the customer knows what they're buying and how it works and any details associated with it without them having to read the description or the bullet points, right? This is not that hard to do. It's pretty inexpensive to get a little bit of design work done with your photography to show that like, oh, hey, like inside of this sleeping bag, there's a little valuables pocket. If I were just to look at the picture, I wouldn't have realized that. I would have had to read the description, right? But this calls it out. It calls out the zipper. It calls out, the weight of this and some features of the fabric or material that it's made out of. It also shows you what it looks like when this thing's packed down. And now I also have the assumption that it comes with a carrying case, and I've been able to figure all that out just from this one image here. So trying to be descriptive in your images is very beneficial over only including this information like in your bullets or in your description. All right. The other thing that I talked about is like, do the customers understand why your product is better than the competitors? And I think these are 2 good examples of this. The first one, or the middle one right here, is a towel. And the main value prop of this particular towel is its like weight. It's just like the fabric. The fabric's heavier and it's fluffier and it's just like bigger and softer. And again, without reading the text or without having to say like, oh, this is 350 GSM, that's like the weight measurement of fabrics, I can see right here that compared to other towels, this thing looks way bigger and fluffier and softer, right? And as a result, I would assume that it's more absorbent and it just looks a lot nicer to use in this photo. The competitors is even like a little bit like dingy looking, like not very clean, which probably helps a little bit. But you want to be calling out what's the value prop of your particular product? Why is it better than the competitors? And make that very clear without forcing the customer to read your description. Another way that you can do that, besides just taking a picture side by side with your competitor, is by using one of these competitive matrices. And before I saw the split tests associated with these, I wouldn't have thought these worked very well. I know like when I see these on websites, like right away I'm just like, those are BS. Like I don't believe them. But I guess most customers aren't as skeptical as what I am, because we've seen a lot of split tests of these really increased conversion rates. So this one's comparing their bundle versus others. And I think it's just like an easy way for customers to be able to see what's different about your products compared to the competitors. And this is like a good opportunity for you to call out anything that's better. So for here, they're showing that it's multiple slicers and the handle's nicer and it comes with this ebook and whatever else, right? So you can be thinking about with your product, like maybe it's just of higher quality or it passes some test, or I don't know, just it's very product dependent. But just be thinking about, hey, why should customers be buying yours? And go ahead and just call that out like on one of these photos so that the customer doesn't have to do, you know, their homework and go around and compare all these different products. You can just help them compare it all right here. All right, so that's all I have for the presentation. I think thankfully we have a few minutes left to take a couple questions, but if I were just leave you with anything walking away from this presentation, one, don't run out of stock during Q4. This is like the most painful thing that can happen during Q4, and the sales are doing well and you're able to increase your prices a little bit. So now's the time to be placing those last orders and get them in time for the peak holiday season. And if you really want to try to like optimize your listings and get set up for the season, now's the time to be doing that. You know, you don't want to be like split testing your listings or changing out your pictures or whatever else like the night before Black Friday. Like now's the time to be thinking about that so you can be ready for kind of like the holiday rush. So, and Alicia, do we have I think looks like we have a few minutes for questions. Do you have a few for me?
We do have a few minutes for question. We actually just got the links from Hillary as well, if you'd like me to send those out.
Yeah, fantastic. If you guys aren't customers and you're interested in getting either Jungle Scout or Splitly, and Alicia will drop the links to those in the chat or wherever else she can do it there.
Just send it to everyone now.
Fantastic. And I think you can get 40% off Splitly for your first month. And there's also a little bit of a deal for Jungle Scout. So if you're interested, feel free to take advantage of those discount links in the spirit of Black Friday discounts.
Got it. Thank you so much. Okay, so yes, so we have a few more questions. I know that we have a few minutes here, but so there's a clarification on a question I asked before. I don't think I asked it properly. Again, I'm not the expert when it comes to keywords and product listings, but a clarification on Andy and Jennifer's question. So the piggybacking off somebody else's ASIN, right? So really what they're asking is if they can modify the listing where the ASIN itself is owned by another vendor.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
So.
And this is the worst answer to always give, but it depends. You can feel free to try to do so. What typically happens is some listings are kind of like locked and Amazon won't let you make the changes with them. Other ones are not. I think this is kind of a result of a very old system on Amazon, kind of like an old catalog. And there doesn't seem to be like a clear rhyme or reason why you can edit some listings and not others that you weren't the original creator of. But feel free to just try. And then if there are definitely improvements you can make listings that like you don't own, you can open up a ticket inside of Seller Central, and the catalog team will usually help you out to make those changes, as long as I guess they deem them that like the listing is better because of these.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Andy. Jennifer, hopefully we got your question and answer right this time. I have another question here from Amy Lynn. She's wondering, if somebody is a vendor and they're told that they're not allowed to have text in the images, what would you suggest that she handle this situation? Does that make sense?
Good question.
Yeah, okay.
I guess I would talk to the or the supplier that you're buying your products from and ask them about that. So I mean, I imagine it's because of some kind of like brand guidelines that this particular company has, because per Amazon's terms of service, you can't use that text in the main image. And sorry if I didn't make that clear earlier, it does have to have a pure white background with like no badges or text, but in the rest of your images, you can include that. So, you know, I guess I think kind of your only option here would be to talk to your supplier and just tell them the advantages of doing so and see if they're willing or open to doing so.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much for that. So we have a question here from Angad, who was also here yesterday. So welcome back. Happy to have you here again. So he's wondering, what are your thoughts on automatic sponsored campaigns in regards to how effective they are? And do you think that they maybe not work so much in the beginning and then later on they ramp up in their effectiveness?
Yeah, good question. I actually see them the other way around. I see them effective and beneficial in the early days because they're essentially mining for keywords for you because
Hmm.
Amazon's helping decide what keywords are relevant for your particular product. And then usually what happens is I then load those keywords and keywords that I found through keyword research tools into manual campaigns. And that's what really helps you optimize or like fine tune the different bids for different keywords. But when I launch a brand new product, I actually do launch an automatic campaign, usually with a relatively small budget, maybe $20 or $50 a day. But that just helps me mine some of the keywords that maybe I didn't think of before.
Okay, good one. So then I have a question here from Nick. So let's say you have a product that's $5. How do you adjust your bidding strategy for an item that's $5 or less? Just because sometimes popular keywords really would just equal the cost of that product itself. So I need
Yeah, it's very difficult to do. That's one of the really tough things about selling really inexpensive products is, even if your margins are like 20%,
yeah,
it's still only like $1 profit per unit. And the fact of the matter is you're probably not going to be able to make PPC cost effective unless it's for very specific terms and everyone selling that product is selling it for like the same price point. So like if you're
yeah.
selling I don't know, like duct tape, and the roll of duct tape's only like $5 and everyone's selling for like $5, that keyword's probably pretty inexpensive because people know that there's not too much money to be made there. But yeah, unfortunately that's about the best advice I have for you.
Okay, okay. And then we have maybe a Q4, more holiday season-esque question. So Tony's wondering if you have any advice on specific holiday season keywords.
Yeah, this is actually a good question. I think what they're referring to here is things like trying to bid on the keyword like Christmas gift
Yes,
or
okay, it's his example here.
like items like that. Or there's other
Mhm.
ones that I've seen in the past like Christmas gifts for dad or gifts for dad or like some things like
Yeah,
that. And feel free to give that a try. I've seen in some of my sponsored products campaigns in the past that some of those are. So, for example, I sell hooded baby towels, and I think I was bidding on a few terms that were like baby gift or like even some things like gift for 1 year old or some things like that. So yeah, feel free to give those a try. And some of those will work year round too. More holiday related like Christmas gift for dad or some things like that. Obviously that won't get very many impressions come March, but yeah, some of those have been effective for me in the past.
okay, great. So now, let's see, we do have a few here. So Gus is wondering if you could give them any insights or give the audience any insights into how the suggested bids are calculated with your Jungle Scout tool.
Yeah, so the suggested bid data comes directly from Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so we just get it directly from Amazon, and the values shown there are the suggested bid for a 90% win rate.
Okay.
So yeah, that's so we don't, it's not like a derived piece of information. We do get that just directly from Amazon. That's their Amazon suggested bid for a 90% win rate.
Okay, got it. And I guess we could have one more question here. Let's see what we can do. Ah, so when you're advertising, this is from Jennifer, when you're advertising on Amazon, how does your bid price affect how many broad search keywords your ad is served based on? Does that make sense? So she has
Um,
not been able to get a clear answer and she's relying more on organic traffic as a result, but increasing your bid price, I guess, on broad search keywords.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it doesn't matter the match type, whether it's exact match or phrase match or broad match.
Mm-hmm.
Increasing your bid will always at least help you get impressions.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind with the ad auction on Amazon, you're not charged your bid. That's just the maximum amount of money you'll spend. So like you can bid like $10 on a keyword, and if the next highest person is like $1.75, you'll
Yeah.
just be charged a little bit more than that $1.75. Okay, so um, Amazon does take into account other things into the ad auction, like the match type and like the relevancy of your particular product, in determining whether or not they'll show it. But Yeah, regardless of the match type, increasing your bid always helps you get additional impressions.
Okay, got it. Okay, well, we've run out of time. I have to do a hard stop here. I already told Greg, but because we do have another presentation coming on after this, if you guys would like to tune in, Salsify, product list optimization. But I want to say thank you, Greg, for your awesome presentation and for your lightning Q&A round. Thank you so much. And also a huge thank you to our audience. We understand 45 minutes is, a lot of time and really valuable, and we're really appreciative that you chose to spend it with us at CPC Strategy and Jungle Scout. So thanks again. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much. It's been fun. I've enjoyed presenting this to you guys. Hopefully you found some actionable takeaways for Q4, and I'll see you next time.
I'm sure. Signing off from San Diego.
Adios. Bye-bye.
And Austin. Bye.